Hi, everyone, and welcome to episode 13 of Terpenes and Testing, the podcast. This broadcast is brought to you by Mace Media Group and Terpenes and Testing magazine, the industry's first publication dedicated to cannabis science. I'm Jason Lupoi, and I'm the editor-in-chief of Terpenes and Testing magazine, and I'll be your host as we navigate across the landscape of cannabis and psychedelic science. Anytime you ask someone how they got into the cannabis industry, what I've found that typically follows are wonderful stories running a gradient from the person being fated to work in the industry to their never having thought for a minute that they would be working with cannabis. I'm definitely one of the latter. I knew I liked working with plants, but my interest came from their potential for renewable energy applications. Never in my wildest dreams did I ever think I would be working with cannabis, editing and writing for cannabis publications, not to mention getting a mesmerizing education in ethnobotanical plants like some of the psychedelics that we've been covering. In this industry, I can let my hair down, I can be myself, and I can geek out over really cool science that also has those trademark rebellious undertones. So for this episode, I wanted to speak with Bryant Jones. Bryant is a plant scientist out of the University of Minnesota. He's also currently the chief of cultivation for Evocanna, Boterra director of genetics, and chief of horticulture for Just Incredible Cultivation. Bryant is also the founder and CEO of the Cannabis Horticulture, Agronomy, and Researching Consulting Company, and an executive board member of the American Chemical Society's CAN subdivision on cannabis chemistry. Bryant was also the 2019 international recipient of the Mahmoud Al-Soli Award for Excellence in the Cannabis Chemistry Community and made the Cannabis Scientists Power List 2021 Plant Science Pioneers ones to watch. Bryant, welcome to the show.
Hey, Jason. Thanks for having me.
Well, it's great to be able to talk with you again. And I wanted to kind of kickstart the conversation with a question that I tend to ask a lot of people, because like I said in the outset, we all kind of have our own stories of how we ended up working with cannabis. And I was curious as to what having the opportunity to be involved in the cannabis industry means to you on a personal level.
Oh my goodness. The cannabis industry has been defining, to say the least. Within my own experience, working with plants, like most people, I would say that I know, we've all known that we're going to work with plants. And that's something that's just been a reoccurring theme in life. Personally, working in the industry is like I said, beyond defining. It's rewarding. I get to do all the little things that I've wanted to do and dream about while in college. And I could speak on being in the industry for days.
Yeah, no doubt. I feel the same way, and I like I said, I've really felt that when I was going to graduate school and afterwards, I really felt like I was destined for something outside of the normal pathways that a PhD analytical chemist might go. And I didn't know what that was at the time, but suffice to say that ended up coming true for me.
Mm-hmm.
You once told me that you are an herbalist, and I was curious if you could share with us what an herbalist does and how that differs from a botanist or a horticulturist, other degrees of that nature.
Yeah, sure. So an herbalist, basically, we use the secondary metabolism in plants to make medicines to excite change in the body. So it could be musculoskeletal. It could be circulatory, it could be nervous system, even just your mood. And what we do is utilize anything the plant has to offer in terms of extractable constituents, things that can be formulated. And often these things are, they have active chemical groups on them that are active in the body. So there's a myriad of medicines that can be made depending on what continent you're on and what particularly ails you. For instance, in China, their type of herbalism is called traditional Chinese medicine. If you're around India, you might call it Ayurvedic and Ayurvedic medicine. Here in the States, they call it allopathy, homeopathy, but just a general term which encompasses all of those herbal studies is called herbalism. And that's what led me on to my studies into plant physiology, biology, genetics. I really took a liking to the power of plants and their ability to make these constituents, and it really got me wanting to explore that more. And then lo and behold, I started learning about terpenes and the powerhouse of capabilities that the cannabis plant is able to do is just amazing. They can simulate everything from a piece of cake to a dead skunk, and it's amazing.
Yeah, have you in your studies have you come across other plants that have this wealth of secondary metabolites like cannabis does, and that can do so many natural things for the plant and yet so many things for humankind as well?
So no, not really. In terms of, so there are other phytocannabinoids, but um, cannabis is at the top of that. It's the heavyweight. It has, not to mention, the antioxidant properties and all the minerals that go along with the plant. It has these cannabinoids, and these cannabinoids are capable of mitigating a lot of ailments in the human body. It's amazing that it's a naturally occurring compound that's a partial antagonist, and it just so happens to augment the part of our body, the endocannabinoid system, and it can excite all types of different changes depending on the person, the user, and what type of mood they're in.
Yeah, I know that when I was doing a lot of research on terpenes in the scientific literature, it really was startling to me that and surprising that these I knew terpenes from cannabis, but I had never really delved into why a plant makes terpenes, and I
Mhm.
recognized this whole world of warfare, basically, where the terpenes can do everything from just maybe be bitter so an insect stops eating it,
Yeah.
or can actually signal predatory insects to kind of come and defend it. And yet so it has these very destructive properties in nature, and also it simultaneously can lure pollinators to it, and kind of have the plant spread its wealth that way. And yet we can benefit from so many different medicinal properties of terpenes as well. So I found that to be really fascinating, and it was something that my experience in this industry kind of led to.
Yeah, no, it's funny that you use the term warfare. It's it's literally that. So like if mycelium were the wires in which the internet for the whole universe was made, terpenes would be the language that it's made upon. That would be the coding. Terpenes are used by microbes, they're used by bacteria, they're used by other plants to signal other plants. It's literally how things that don't have an audible way of speaking speak to other things in nature, and it's amazing. We can see it in streptomycin interacting with other types of bacteria in a petri dish. They'll communicate through terpenes. One in particular is a geosmin that smells like, most people interpret it as rain. Like you'll go outside and you'll say, oh, it's about to rain. And what you're actually smelling is geosmin, which is a terpene, which is released by a strain of actinomycetes, streptomycin, which is literally coats the planet. It's literally everywhere. And the littlest amount of moisture will make these terpenes volatilize. So when we go outside and say, oh, it smells like rain, what you're actually smelling is that terpene.
Yeah, that's amazing. I did not know that, and that's really cool. I that
Mhm.
um, I wanted to talk about your time at the University of Minnesota a little bit. And you had once told me that while you were going to school for your bachelor's degree, that the university asked you to teach a course about cannabis. And I was curious what their motivation for having that type of course added into the curriculum was. I mean, this is not something that's often been available at the collegiate level.
Yeah, it was actually a funny story. When the teacher is ready, that the student will be there. There's those sayings like that, and it was kind of one of those parables when it came to university. I had really done my work and gotten cannabis to a place that was being able to be spoken about on campus, and that caught wind of a particular woman who was the director of a department there, and she really took a keen eye to me, and she knew that I was in the American Chemical Society's subdivision for cannabis science, and she really wanted that to be like the in. And along with that organization, we I was able to provide a swinging door of the most up to date curriculum. Like you couldn't dream of this kind of course in any other course. Like, could you imagine a course where industry professionals are showing up every week and cracking open their notebooks to tell you what's going on? Like, it's every week was something different, and it was the most enriched course. And the way that they wanted it taught was the way that I was helping them design it. So they were like, is it possible that could you teach but not, because we know we don't have the budget for it and you're still a student, but maybe you could TA. There was all this talk around that, but now since I'm graduated, there's actually been discussions about me coming back to kind of enrich the university's coursework that is focused on cannabis. I really made awareness that we were pretty far behind in terms of cannabis. University of Minnesota has always been known as a horticultural leader, even in agronomy. Niels Borlaug was one of our students there, and he fed 2/3 of the planet with his wheat research. We can all attribute something to the University of Minnesota's contributions to either horticulture or agriculture. And I always found it weird that we didn't have anything to supplement our rising cannabis industry. We had a medical program and we had a viable workforce, but we weren't training people to go into said workforce. So I just had to start somewhere. And, we started the Agro 2402, which is the science of cannabis, and it's offered at the University of Minnesota. It's just one course, but we're looking to add on more things in labs and actually be able to train an actual workforce.
Yeah, that's the thing there, and our theme for our June content on the website is cannabis education. So this is extremely timely conversation.
Mhm.
We've been talking with some folks who have helped bring about these kinds of programs in the industry, and one of the main things of the discussion points was the need to professionalize and the need to kind of train the workforce, now that we have gotten on the other side of a fair amount of cannabis knowledge, that we can actually start to pass that on to the generations that are coming through the university level. We can build out that more knowledgeable workforce, and everybody can kind of have those backgrounds. So that's great, and I think it's such a when you first told me about that, I just really stuck in my mind, because that's such a amazing opportunity for the school to come to an undergraduate student that they saw this passion in, and kind of help them build out the course. That's really remarkable.
Mm. Yeah, I had a great time, and I'll never forget just the quality of that course. Like, it was always surprising to me. Like, as I design as we were working on the course, and every week to have that current of knowledge, it was like, God, I wish my other classes were this way. But it was always funny. Like, we threw this class together, and it ended up being just the best. Like, we would have people who weren't even enrolled in the college who would like show up and just try and sit in, and we'd be like, hold on, no, people are paying tuition, you have to go.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry, but I enjoy your ambition, but you have to go.
Yeah, I can imagine. The interest is definitely there. I started to work with a Pittsburgh area lawyer and a medical doctor who is one of the certifying doctors in the state for medical cannabis, and we have been teaching senior citizens about cannabis. Kind of a 101 guide, and I didn't want to bog them down with three hour and a half lectures on science. So we did one, first we usually do the legal, then we do the science, and then we do the medical. And it's really been remarkable how pro cannabis the students already are before they come into the industry.
Mhm.
How shocked they are at all of the falsified reefer madness propaganda,
Oh my goodness.
and how, like, one guy stood up and said, "This is a miracle, everybody should try it." And I was just like, yeah, man, I was so excited to be able to feel that vibe, because I didn't expect it going in. And I think
Yeah.
that's really remarkable, because a lot of people are, they're either tired of the negative side of all the propaganda against this plant, or they've tried it directly or word of mouth, and they've been able to witness a better quality of life for themselves. So it's really exciting to me to see that so many people are eager to get involved in even just learning something about the plant.
I apologize for that. It sounds like one of my neighbors seems to have set the fire alarm off in the building.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, so it's the benefits of having a shared building. Just give me a moment. Let's see if they can get it off. Hold on.
All right, so we are back. The fire alarm is taken care of here, and so Brian, I just wanted to ask you about what your main goals are as a cultivator, and what you think are the main things to be focused on as a cannabis cultivator.
So in the industry, I've always been a preacher of not focusing on just cloning and not focusing on just popping new seeds and constantly putting out chemovars, because we hate to use the word strain, okay, because you can strain a muscle and there are strains of bacteria, but there are not strains of cannabis.
Right, right.
Just wanted to put that out there for my PSA. But so these chemovars that we're putting out, I've always seen that in the industry, there's always an unstable amount of flower that's put out. It'll be around for a year and then it's gone. And then when I got into industry, I saw that they're focusing on high throughput breeding that has little care for the genetics and how they actually replicate. So you're using moms that are constantly being cloned and cloned and cloned, and they're not healthy. And then you have genetics that are crossed first time, seeded out, then put into flower. And a lot of times that these, although cannabis does outcross, cannabis can express breeding depressions. And this happens when they have too many related parents. And you can have, you'll have a breeding department that all of a sudden is putting out bum plants and they don't understand why. They're not performing, the yields aren't there, the terpene production isn't there. And it's because there's too many clashes, whether genetically or in the cultivation style, i.e. cloning too much. And I really wanted to try and bring in the benefits of tissue culture. I don't understand why more cultivation companies aren't using tissue cultures. It's literally like the best wonder of plant production. You can take single cells and replicate plants in a matter of weeks and have clean genetics that perform as if they were seeds themselves, you know. And then another objective of mine is to develop isogenic seeds. It's something that I've written about a couple times. Isogenic cultivars, where you have seeds that perform more or less like a clone. So you don't have much variability within the seed, but you have all the sundry of benefits that come along with popping a seed from its shell. All its benefits of being able to fight saprophytes or pests, whatever it may be. You get all the benefits when you pop a seed. So between tissue cultures and not over cloning plants and trying to design a way to actually get isogenic seeds on the market where, you know, you could plan out your whole crop and have it stored in a refrigerator rather than having to have a constantly moving vegetation room. You know, it lowers your footprint. So between tissue cultures and replicating plants different ways, I'd like to bring some differentiation to the market.
Excellent. That's I think for my last question, I was curious, there's a lot of discussion on the kind of the death of the small scale cultivator, or, there's a lot of states where larger groups are kind of gobbling up all of the smaller groups. And I was curious what your take on that is. Is there a place in this industry for small scale cultivators?
I'm for the small scale cultivators. I'm gonna tell all the guys, don't give up. Yes, it's daunting right now, but if you strive to differentiate yourself from people that are from the other runners in the group, I guarantee you those big companies are gonna turn around and focus on you, and then all of a sudden you'll become part of their cog, and you can't, they can't spin it without you, is what I'm saying. You end up getting power in that. I'm not a big fan of super large MSOs, as they have a lot of bad stigma that goes along with them. There may be a few out there who, have some good ethos, but for the most part, they come into states looking for the floor, meaning, the lowest amount that you could pay for bulk cannabis. And they flood the market with that kind of stuff. And just, it's like a lot of noise in a concert, and then you got that little guy there playing with the violin, and he's like playing beautiful music, but you're like loud in a concert, and you're like, oh my God, is that guy standing there with a Stradivarian like playing that? Like, hold on. And that's what the small cultivator is. Like, you may look at him and you're like, oh my goodness, I need to get that, but there's so much noise around you. So you guys stay in the running, differentiate yourselves, focus on your genetics, and just stay in the running.
I really love that response, Brian. I think it's got the flavor of rebellion and, kind of fighting the system that this industry really stands upon. And I really want to thank you for joining me today and discussing your path in the industry. To me, it's always nice to hear people's individual stories, and your passion to be in this industry really speaks volumes.
I appreciate you, Jason. Thank you.
And thanks everyone for tuning in. We will see you next time on Terpenes and Testing, the podcast. Until then, please come visit us at www.terpenesandtesting.com or on one of our social media platforms. Cheers.